we start off with the preparation of the canvas. Very, very important that you don't just use inks on a canvas which hasn't been prepared. The reason being is that we use a lot of water when we're painting, and we need to prepare the surface. As we know, canvases come with all different types of gesso with different textures, etc. So let's just standardize our canvas. We start off with some acrylic gel. You can use any acrylic gel that you can find. The gel actually dries clear, but it goes into the little teeth in the canvas and it smooths it out, and it actually prepares the surface for working with acrylic inks. Now, we don't have to use the gel in a neat format. We can mix it 50% gel with 50% water. And the way that I apply it is very quick and easy. Let me show you. I will use a whitish brush and my gel. Just paint the gel onto the canvas like this, and then scoop out some water and spread it around with the water. So you're basically getting a ratio of 50% gel medium, 50% water. So once we've covered the whole area with the gel medium and water, we can let this dry. So here we have our koi fish. Let's place it onto our canvas, bearing in mind, of course, our focal point area, which should be there, 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 or there. So I have selected this area. Place your main fish, which is the bigger fish, in one area, and then take your supporting fish and place it on the canvas as well. And you can play around with your fish until you like the position that you've achieved. You must be very careful not to make your fish parallel. Alright, so for interest and for movement, I think we'll go with something like that. Once you've placed your fish, take your masking tape and stick it down, just here and there. Stick it in position so that you can have a picture in your head of what your painting is going to look like. Right, stick one on the tail and one on the nose. Gently outline them. You don't have to do it perfectly. You just outline the fish, just to give you an idea of where the placement is. Alright, once the outline is done, you remove your cutouts and you sketch in your fish. Right, now we're ready to paint our fish. So we start off just dabbing little puddles of acrylic ink onto our palette. I use a paper palette because it doesn't stain. You can just throw the piece of paper away when you're finished. And we apply water to our fish. Not everywhere. We don't cover the entire fish with water. You must leave little areas of dry canvas in between. And then we start having fun. Let's start with our red. Drop the red in. Can you see how the water is actually doing the work for us? The water is transporting the pigment and it's flowing beautifully. So we just start off like that and we paint our first fish. Now, we like to have variation of color in with our fish as well. So you can drop some yellow in there. Let the yellow run naturally into the other pigment. Right, so remember that we have to keep some white areas in the fish because we do not want our fish to look cut and paste on the background. We have to make it look as though it's submerged and swimming in the water, and this is how we do it. Right, this is just the first layer. Let's go for our next fish. Water, plain water, leaving a bit of white. Right, okay, let's do this one orange. Let's drop the pigment in there. Can you see how easy it is to paint? The water does the work. And what's very liberating about this type of painting and this method of painting is that there are no mistakes. There are no mistakes. Whatever happens with the water happens, and you work with that. Let's drop in a little bit of black. There we go. And then very, very lightly, we can put a little bit of colour into the fins. Just drag the water out and the colour will naturally flow into the fins. Right, how simple is that? Right, now it's very important to let each layer dry before you put another layer on the top. So if you have puddles of water which seem to be damming up anywhere, you can use a tissue or a cotton roll and you can just pick up the excess water. Remember, this is just your first layer. We're probably going to have about 5 layers on top of this fish, but this just gives us a starting point. So let's dab the excess up and then we can dry the rest off with a hairdryer. Right, now we're ready to move on. We've done our basic application of ink, which is now perfectly dry. Now we move on with the next layer. And here we use the pigment and we apply the pigment on neat. In other words, we don't make puddles of water and then throw the paint into the water. Here we just blend out the water along the edges, but we're trying to get a deeper pigment on the koi fish for the second layer. Right? You can go along, thin. You can put some drops on there just for interest. Remember, no mistakes at all. Whatever happens, happens. Let's move on to our next fish. Can you see? Right, so now our second layer is dry, and what we want to do now is to try and give the koi fish some shape and to make them look rounded, because as they are at the moment they look pretty flat. What I like to use for that is this wonderful color called sepia. This is just a cheap acrylic ink, but it's a brownish color. Let me show you how we can change our fish from looking flat on the canvas to round bodied. We will paint with our sepia along the sides. Not all the way. You must have gaps in between, otherwise it will look like a straight line. So by adding the sepia, we start to give the fish a little bit of a rounded shape. Paint behind the gill, shadow behind the gill, just like that, and your koi fish starts to look more rounded. Let's do the other one as well. Around the edge. They do have a little whisker over there as well. So what we're actually doing here is we're creating the shadow on the outside of the body, but we're leaving the central part of the body light. which gives the dimension and the shape. Here we go again on this one. Can you see I'm just using very loose brush strokes? We paint, then we leave a gap, then we paint, then we leave a gap. Right, we're going to work on the eye just a little bit more. Just a little bit of an outline of the eye. And then, to make the eyes look alive, we put a little spot of red just over there, which makes the eye look more alive. What we can do as well on the eyes is we can put a little bit of white over the top of the eye, indicating the light reflection that's coming down off the top of the pond, and a little highlight just to give a glimmer. For added texture, we can take our palette knife and on the red areas just do a few brush strokes with the palette knife. Right, the last step for this little painting are the fins. So I dip my flat brush into white acrylic paint and I add the fins. Just like that. And I give the impression of the fish in the water. So although I'm not really painting water at this stage, all the white that I've left in the bodies indicate water flowing over the fish's body. And that's it for now with this little painting. It's quite ready to go onto the wall. Right, so here we have our little painting, plain and simple. It can go onto your wall just like it is. Never forget to actually sign your painting. But let me tell you that in our main class, in our main course, should you wish to purchase one, I can actually take you another step further and teach you how to integrate the koi with the water, how to add scales to your fish, how to add depth in your painting so that you can see that one fish is swimming on top of the other, and we can create more movement. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.